We cannot lose. All right. We're doing A Course in Miracles. We're at the end of chapter 25, and this is section 9, and it's called The Justice of Heaven. And that quote, we cannot lose, is from an earlier passage that starts, it's a beautiful poetic passage that comes early in the Course, I think maybe chapter 2, and it says, how can you who are so holy suffer? So here it is. Here we go. The justice of heaven. What can it be but arrogance to think your little errors cannot be undone by heaven's justice? And what could this mean except that they are sins and not mistakes, forever uncorrectable, and to be met with vengeance, not with justice? Are you willing to be released from all effects of sin? You cannot answer this until you see all the answer must entail. For if you answer yes, it means you will forgo all values of this world in favor of the peace of heaven. Not one sin would you retain, and not one doubt that this is possible will you hold dear that sin be kept in place. You mean that truth has greater value now than all illusions, and you recognize that truth must be revealed to you because you know not what it is. To give reluctantly is not to gain the gift because you are reluctant to accept it. It is saved for you until reluctance to receive it disappears and you are willing it be given you. God's justice warrants gratitude, not fear. Nothing you give is lost to you or anyone, but cherished and preserved in heaven, where all of the treasures given to God's Son are kept for him and offered anyone who but holds out his hand in willingness they be received. Nor is the treasure less as it is given out. Each gift but adds to the supply, for God is fair. He does not fight against his Son's reluctance to perceive salvation as a gift from him. Yet would his justice not be satisfied until it is received by everyone. Be certain any answer to a problem the Holy Spirit solves will always be one in which no one loses. And this must be true because he asks no sacrifice of anyone. An answer which demands the slightest loss to anyone has not resolved the problem, but has added to it and made it greater, harder to resolve, and more unfair. It is impossible the Holy Spirit could see unfairness as a resolution. To him, what is unfair must be corrected because it is unfair, and every error is a perception in which one, at least, is seen unfairly. Thus is justice not accorded to the Son of God. When anyone is seen as losing, he has been condemned, and punishment becomes his due instead of justice. The sight of innocence makes punishment impossible and justice sure. The Holy Spirit's perception leaves no ground for an attack. Only a loss could justify attack, and loss of any kind he cannot see. The world solves problems in another way. It sees a resolution as a state in which it is decided who shall win and who shall lose, how much the one shall take, and how much can the loser still defend. Yet does the problem still remain unsolved, for only justice can set up a state in which there is no loser, no one left unfairly treated and deprived, and thus with grounds for vengeance. Problem solving cannot be vengeance, which at best can bring another problem added to the first, in which the murder is not obvious. The Holy Spirit's problem solving is the way in which the problem ends. It has been solved because it has been met with justice. Until it has, it will recur because it has not yet been solved. The principle that justice means no one can lose is crucial to this course, for miracles depend on justice. Not as it is seen through this world's eyes, but as God knows it and as knowledge is reflected in the sight the Holy Spirit gives. No one deserves to lose, and what would be unjust to him cannot occur. Healing must be for everyone because he does not merit an attack of any kind. What order can there be in miracles unless someone deserves to suffer more and others less? And is this justice to the wholly innocent? A miracle is justice. It is not a special gift to some to be withheld from others as less worthy, more condemned, and thus apart from healing. Who is there who can be separate from salvation if its purpose is the end of specialness? Where is salvation's justice if some errors are unforgivable and warrant vengeance in place of healing and return of peace? Salvation can seek to help God's Son be more unfair than he has sought to be. Salvation cannot seek to help God's Son be more unfair than he has sought to be. If miracles, the Holy Spirit's gift, were given specially to an elect and special group and kept apart from others as less deserving, then is he ally to specialness. What he cannot perceive, he bears no witness to. And everyone is equally entitled to his gift of healing and deliverance and peace. To give a problem to the Holy Spirit to solve for you means that you want it solved. To keep it for yourself to solve without his help is to decide it should remain unsettled, unresolved, and lasting in its power of injustice and attack. No one can be unjust to you unless you have decided first to be unjust. And then must problems rise to block your way and peace be scattered by the winds of hate. Unless you think that all your brothers have an equal right to miracles with you, you will not claim your right to them because you were unjust to one with equal rights. Seek to deny and you will feel denied. Seek to deprive and you have been deprived. A miracle can never be received because another could receive it not. Only forgiveness offers miracles, and pardon must be just to everyone. The little problems that you keep and hide become your secret sins because you do not choose to let them be removed for you. And so they gather dust and grow until they cover everything that you perceive and leave you fair to no one. Not one right do you believe you have, and bitterness with vengeance justified and mercy lost condemns you as unworthy of forgiveness. The unforgiven have no mercy to bestow upon another. That is why your sole responsibility must be to take forgiveness for yourself. The miracle that you receive, you give. Each one becomes an illustration of the law on which salvation rests, that justice must be done to all if anyone is to be healed. No one can lose, and everyone must benefit. Each miracle is an example of what justice can accomplish when it is offered to everyone alike. It is received and given equally. It is awareness that giving and receiving are the same. Because it does not make the same unlike, it sees no differences where none exists. And thus it is the same for everyone because it sees no differences in them. Its offering is universal and it teaches but one message. What is God's belongs to everyone and is his due. Thus ends chapter 25, the justice of God. And this section is called the justice of heaven. Basically the same thing. Let's read one line here. There's many lines that are very important, but this one line. The principle that justice means no one can lose is crucial to this course, for miracles depend on justice, not as it is seen through the world's eyes, but as God knows it, and his knowledge is reflected in the sight the Holy Spirit gives. So, obviously, Jesus is talking a lot about this principle of, for the problem of, you could say that for the God puzzle to be solved, for the problem of suffering to be solved, for the problem of evil, there's actually a theological term, theodicy, theodice. The problem of evil. This is a problem that has been thought about and debated and written about for millennia now. Because if you go back to the religions that started about 3,000 years ago, 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, like Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Jainism, those religions that still are major forces in the world today, what were they all talking about? They were talking about the problem of evil or the problem of suffering. And what we find attempted answers, like, for example, in the Old Testament, there's the book of Job, which is written to try to explain why do people suffer? Why do good people suffer? And quite a lot of other of the books of the Bible actually go into this topic in their own ways, and they don't all have the same answer to that question. But the Course has its own answer to the problem of suffering, right? And it's somewhat unique. I mean, it's very similar in many ways to Advaita Vedanta, which is the non-dualistic tradition of Vedanta, and Vedanta includes other traditions, but the non-dualistic school basically posits that there is one reality, right? There's one reality, and nothing but that one reality is real. Only Brahman is real, or Brahman is real. Nothing else, anything that does not partake of that is not real, right? So Shankara, who was one of the greatest exponents of Advaita Vedanta, I think he was in the 8th century CE, he had that famous saying, which is, the world, only God is real, the world is unreal. God is real, the world is unreal. I think it was Brahman, Satya, Jagat Mithya. The world is a myth, right? The world is false. It's an illusion. That's pretty much what the Course seems to be saying. And I just got a comment on one of the videos where this guy said, anyone who says that the Course in Miracles is non-dualistic or is teaching non-dualism is junk. This individual, no, I accept that. I wouldn't at all judge that, because I don't claim to have the final understanding of this, and I just want to say though that some of the great thinkers, including Ken Wapnick, have made the claim that A Course in Miracles is ultimately a non-dualistic teaching. It's getting at non-dualism, even though it speaks very dualistically in places, and actually throughout the text it seems very dualistic in many ways. But then there are passages in the Course that suggest that it's really getting at non-dualism, right? And let's take this passage that we just read and talk about that, and how that might fit into what we just read. Okay, so we know that in the Bible, for example, the Old Testament and the New Testament, God has a form. God is anthropomorphized from the very beginning of in Genesis. God is walking around the Garden of Eden, talking to Adam and Eve. Right? He seems like he's a person, actually, and then all throughout the Old Testament, God seems to have a form. But no man can see me and live. Is somewhere in there, with Moses, but Moses is able to see his backside, his back, whether that's his back or his backside, I don't know. But no one can see me and live. And this is also in the Bhagavad Gita with Krishna and Arjuna. And Arjuna wants to see Krishna's form. Krishna says to him, Krishna says, no one can see my form, but I will give you divine eyes. Divya chakshus. I will give you these divine eyes, and you will be able to see me, see my real form, my cosmic form. So here we are. Okay, well, let me just say that throughout the Old Testament, one of the critiques of it is clearly that God not only seems human, but has human characteristics, including human emotions, especially negative ones. I mean, God is said to be merciful and compassionate, etc., but God is also vengeful, wrathful, jealous, zealous, etc. And that is a problem for many people, that God condemns some people for how they believe. And we find that also in the New Testament, even though people like to say that the God of the New Testament, some people even have made the case that the God of the New Testament is not the same God as the God of the Old Testament, or the God of Jesus is not the same God as the God of the Old Testament, which really does not make any sense, if you think about it. But unless God somehow evolves, but I mean, that's something that this is all everything I'm talking about. We could talk for days about, but I'm trying to put it all in very simple, condense it for the moment here. But Jesus also speaks of the elect, right? There's the elect. There's the people that will be saved, and there are many that will not be saved. That will not follow Jesus, and they will be condemned to the fire, right? Jesus says here, he does mention about the elect. He says, salvation cannot seek to help God's Son be more unfair than he is sought to be. So we're the ones that made all this up, really, right? We have made unfairness and injustice up, not God. God is total love, and so that is the only thing that is real. Everything else is an illusion. Everything else is a story that we made up. Everything else is the dream of the Son of God, right? If miracles, the Holy Spirit's gift, were given specially to an elect and special group and kept apart from others as less deserving, then is he allied to specialness. So the Holy Spirit does not play favorites in any way. And the Holy Spirit is the voice for God in this world. So in other words, if we want to return to our original, true, real nature, and if we aspire to be one with Spirit, to be one with God, then we have to think like God. And how does God think? Well, God does not condemn. God does not attack. God doesn't even, the ultimate thing here is that God doesn't even know. It could be similar. We're talking like Aristotle's unmoved mover. God doesn't even know about the illusion, which a lot of people have a hard time with, that thought, that God doesn't even know about the illusion. How does that work? But again, that's another discussion, but that's the idea of the unmoved mover, is that God did it all, but God is also unmoved. God has never changed, right? And what is it that has never changed is that perfect love that brooks no separation or division. And division is where we get attack, right? Division is where we get ego. And that's what the ego is based in, is the idea of separation, of division. And the ego believes that for someone to win, others have to lose. And that's what we find in many of the religions of the world, right? Is that no, not everyone is going to be saved. Not everyone is going to go to heaven. Only some, right? Only the good guys. Not the sinners, not the bad guys, right? And that's very problematic for many people. It's like you hear that and you're like, oh my God, that's, am I going to go to hell? Am I one of the elect, or am I not one of the elect? And so the Course solves this problem in a very elegant way, very simple way. And it just says that, all right, let's stop all this nonsense. Everyone is saved. We're already saved. We're already one. That's the atonement principle. All we have to do is just remember that, and let go of all the other things that are in the way, which is basically the ego's thought system. And this is for most of us a project, right? It's a process. It's a project. It's a progression. it's not an easy thing necessarily. I mean, it could be easy, but we are conditioned to think otherwise. So the justice of heaven is, this is more. It's interesting that this whole section is really getting at this idea of no one can lose, right? Is that I was mentioning at the beginning, how can you who are so holy suffer? And at the end of that section is, Jesus says, I place the peace of God in your heart and in your hands. The heart is pure to hold it, and the hands are strong to give it. We cannot lose. So here he's also saying, we cannot lose because no one can lose in this, according to the Holy Spirit, no one can lose. If someone loses, everyone loses, right? So, and we can apply that to how we treat others, and how any way in which we want someone else to be less than, or more than, or greater than, right? We're not thinking correctly, right? And that's where we want to correct our vision, because we're putting some less, some more. We go back and forth between the superiority and the inferiority complex, where we think someone else is less than, or some are more than us, and we want to see more and more. We want to align our vision with Jesus and the Holy Spirit's vision, and then we will know true justice. we will return to God slowly, gently, and we will be grateful for the lessons. Thank you so much for listening. And next chapter is a good one. They're all good ones, but this next chapter is 26, and it's the transition. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening.